So all these tips I'm going to show you are on our daily agendas to-do list here. It's all this stuff under share tips. Um, so the first thing I want to show you is something you may have run into when working on the edit entry page. Let's go to my edit entry page. Um, is, I haven't implemented the feature at all. You've all made more progress than me, most likely. Um, we need something in order to update the habit of mind journal entry, we need to keep track of its ID. Okay. And we have the ID, right? It's part of that entry object. So there's a couple of different approaches that you could take, and I don't care which one you take. The first thing I've linked to here is to the Mozilla Developer Network, MDN. I've linked to something called a hidden input type. That is an input element you can put in your HTML. It will not show up to the user, but your code can reference it, for example, when it does the post request. We wouldn't want to put anything that's a secret in a hidden input type because it's not hidden that well. Like someone could look at the page source and see it, right? So we wouldn't put like passwords and stuff like that. But the ID of the object isn't a secret because not only is it in this object, it's literally in the URL, right? It's part of our path here. So the other thing I wanted to show you is if I go to the console, I use the JavaScript console in Chrome just to explore different JavaScript functions on the client side. So for example, I can type window and I can actually see the entire window object and all of its properties and explore it. Because I'll be honest, like front-end web development and back-end web development, not my strength. All right, not something I have a lot of experience within. So I do a lot of exploration, and so I can type in window and I can explore this for. I know there's some element of this window that would get me this ID. I just need to find it, right? And so as I explore through here, I can read through all these different properties. One that sounds familiar or promising, rather, I can see it right here is location because I can actually see what I'm looking for in there. I can open up location. It breaks out the host name, the entire href, the origin, and the path name. Look, this path name is like perfect. It's got edit entry and it's got the ID I'm looking for. So I could write client JavaScript code that uses the window.location.path name to get at this. I didn't know that's how I should do it. I just explored the window object in the JavaScript console in Chrome to find it. Okay. So I'm demonstrating this to like show you my thought process and how I figure this stuff out, so that you can take similar steps yourself. The next thing I want to share with you that you may have run into, is that when you're writing your edit entry page, it's very similar to create entry, but the values aren't default values. They're the values of the actual entries. And you may be struggling to figure out how to set the initial value of the date input. I know I did. I kept on trying to initialize that and it kept showing up as like today and not the previous day. So here's a link again to MDN. And if we look at the documentation for the input date element, first of all, it's cool. It lets you try it here. We can see in this example how the value is specified: 4-digit year dash 2-digit month dash 2-digit day. And it's explained right here as well. And so that's not what I was doing. And so my code wasn't working. And so reading through the documentation for the element can help figure it out. So one of your challenges is, how do you get the date from the Mongoose object from MongoDB, which is a JavaScript date object, and format it into a string that looks like this. And so a couple of tips for you there. And I shared earlier, date objects are really, date and time is hard. There are a couple of promising JavaScript functions. There's toLocale date string and there's toIsoString, which are both promising functions to take a date object and figure it out. Personally, it would take me, well, I didn't want to spend all the time to keep experimenting with these functions in my server code until I got it working. I want to be able to iterate on ideas much more quickly. So I want to show you a REPL. You might be familiar with the commercial product REPLit, which gets its name from a REPL. REPL is an acronym that stands for Read, Eval, Print, Loop. You unwillingly, not unwillingly, unknowingly may have used a REPL when you programmed in Python. When you just type like Python 3 and hit enter, you're in the Python REPL. We can do the same thing with Node. Um, and so let me show you that. This link takes you to some Node documentation, which you might find helpful. But if I just open up a terminal and just type Node, I'm now in the Node REPL. Okay. And I can like explore some of the state stuff. So I can be like example equals new date. And there, I've just made a new date object. Um, I've just made a new date object. I assigned it to my variable example. It always prints out the value of the variable or of the function you've just invoked. So now I can experiment with it. I can do stuff like example.to iso string, and I can see what that prints, which is actually what's printed here. And I, if you read the documentation, I realize this is helpful because look, the beginning's formatted pretty nice, but it's in GMT or technically UTC time zone, which is not Chicago. So maybe that's not quite what I want. If I read more, I do see there is a toLocale string function. This is nice because it converts to the current locale, meaning time zone and time zone, and I guess locale technically refers to how we're formatting the date and the time because there's different conventions in different parts of the world. So the nice thing about this is it does handle the time zone. The time is correct, but the formatting here isn't correct. But I could write code that extracts out the year, month, and day because at least now it's in the right time zone and build it up. There's also other options. You can specify toLocale string to get it formatted in different ways based on different localizations. Because in other parts of the country, the default format would be year, month, day, right? So we could find one of those to pass as an argument and get that done. If I had to explore all of this by like typing code in like router.js and reloading my server, it would take me forever. So use the REPL as a quick way to explore this type of stuff. So those are some key tips I think that will help you out with the edit entry thing. I wanted you to get a little bit of progress yesterday so that hopefully these make more sense today. But you may have noticed like my date isn't working or the date is off by a day. That's a time zone issue, right? Like I created this yesterday, but it says it was 2 days ago. So these functions can help with all of that. So we have today, we have tomorrow, we have Friday to work through these features. As always, please call me over if I can provide guidance in any way, shape, or form. And we'll keep working through this.